Postmodern Condition by Jean-Francois Lyotard. 2. The problem, legitimation. That is the working hypothesis defining the field within which I intend to consider the question of the status of knowledge. This scenario, akin to the one that goes by the name the computerization of society, makes no claims of being original or even true. What is required of a working hypothesis is a fine capacity for discrimination. The scenario of the computerization of the most highly developed societies allows us to spotlight certain aspects of the transformation of knowledge and its effects on public power and civil institutions, effects it would be difficult to perceive from other points of view. Our hypothesis, therefore, should not be accorded predictive value in relation to reality, but strategic value in relation to the question raised. Nevertheless, it has strong credibility, and in that sense our choice of this hypothesis is not arbitrary. It has been described extensively by the experts and is already guiding certain decisions by the governmental agencies and private firms most directly concerned, such as those managing the telecommunications industry. To some extent, then, it is already a part of observable reality. Finally, barring economic stagnation or a general recession, there's a good chance that this scenario will come to pass. It is hard to see what other direction contemporary technology could take as an alternative to the computerization of society. This is as much as to say that the hypothesis is banal, but only to the extent that it fails to challenge the general paradigm of progress in science and technology, to which economic growth and the expansion of socio-political power seem to be natural complements. That scientific and technical knowledge is cumulative is never questioned. At most, what is debated is the form that accumulation takes. Some picture it as regular, continuous, and unanimous. Others as periodic, discontinuous, and conflictual. But these truisms are fallacious. In the first place, scientific knowledge does not represent the totality of knowledge. It has always existed in addition to, and in competition and conflict with, another kind of knowledge, which I will call narrative in the interests of simplicity. I do not mean to say that narrative knowledge can prevail over science, but its model is related to ideas of internal equilibrium and conviviality, next to which contemporary scientific knowledge cuts a poor figure, especially if it is to undergo an exteriorization with respect to the knower and an alienation from its user even greater than has previously been the case. The resulting demoralization of researchers and teachers is far from negligible. It is well known that during the 1960s, in all of the most highly developed societies, it reached such explosive dimensions among those preparing to practice these professions, the students, that there was noticeable decrease in productivity at laboratories and universities unable to protect themselves from its contamination. Expecting this, with hope or fear, to lead to a revolution is out of the question. It will not change the order of things in post-industrial society overnight. But this doubt on the part of scientists must be taken into account as a major factor in evaluating the present and future status of scientific knowledge. It is all the more necessary to take it into consideration, since the scientist's demoralization has an impact on the central problem of legitimation. I use the word in a broader sense than do contemporary German theorists in their discussions of the question of authority. Take any civil law as an example. It states that a given category of citizens must perform a specific kind of action. Legitimation is the process by which a legislator is authorized to promulgate such a law as a norm. Now take the example of a scientific statement. It is subject to the rule that a statement must fulfill a given set of conditions in order to be accepted as scientific. In this case, legitimation is the process by which a legislator dealing with scientific discourse is authorized to prescribe the stated conditions determining whether a statement is to be included in that discourse for consideration by the scientific community. The parallel may appear forced, but as we will see, it is not. The question of the legitimacy of science has been indissociably linked to that of the legitimation of the legislator since the time of Plato, From this point of view, the right to decide what is true is not independent of the right to decide what is just. Even if the statements consigned to these two authorities differ in nature, the point is that there is a strict interlinkage between the kind of language called science and the kind called ethics and politics. They both stem from the same perspective, the same choice, if you will, the choice called the Occident. When we examine the current status of scientific knowledge at a time when science seems more completely subordinated to the prevailing powers than ever before, and along with the new technologies, is in danger of becoming a major stake in their conflicts, the question of double legitimation, far from receding into the background, necessarily comes to the fore, for it appears in its most complete form, that of reversion, revealing that knowledge and power are simply two sides of the same question. Who decides what knowledge is, and who knows what needs to be decided? In the computer age, the question of knowledge is now more than ever a question of government.